Hi there, welcome to End-to-End Solution Architect session. Today I will be talking about Azure policy, how to create the policy, assign the policy, and of course how the policy is taking effect. I will show you every steps. So let's proceed. So the first thing is, what is policy? To give you a simple idea about the policy, if you visit any swimming pool, you have seen that there are some safety rules written. Policies are nothing but the instructions or the rules written formally. Now let's go to the technical definition in Azure policy. So when we create the policy, we are translating an instruction to policy. Now here I have three examples of policy. The first one is data residency requirement. It is regardless that which cloud you use, that your data and the resources should be located in particular regions. The second thing is that enforcing resource tagging. The tagging is very important when you create the resources. We will create the policy to enforce resource tagging. So whenever any resource is created in the cloud, this particular tagging policy will take into effect. The next one is enforce strong password and multi-factor authentication. We know that in every organization we have a password policy, that your password minimum length or maximum length will be such and such, and your password should be alphanumeric. Your password should be changed in every 30 days or 90 days, and additionally that every user should have multi-factor authentication enabled. And there are many more. Okay, but in this tutorial I'll be particularly going through the data residency requirement and enforcing resource tagging, this particular two use cases. Let's go to next. So now here is the part where we'll be talking about the structure of Azure policy. Okay, considering that data residency requirement, data residency means we have to create a policy which will check and make sure that no resources are created outside a defined or particular location. Okay, so in this case the policy, you see that it has few parts. It starts with the properties, and there are two main sections of here. The first one is parameters, the next one is policy rule. Parameters, as the name says, that you define the parameters which you want. I mean, here is the parameter is allowed location. What is the type, metadata, and the default value you provide. So it shows that when you are providing this default value, if you have not entered the parameter value of allowed locations, it will take the default value as West US2. So this is the parameter we have defined over here. Now the policy rule, it validates the parameters. So there are few things over here. You see this if and then statements. So it checks the first condition. If not, field is location in parameter allowed location. So it means that if it doesn't get the allowed location which you have entered in the parameter is not a valid location or the allowed location, it will fail. Now let's go and do some hands-on by creating this location policy. Let's see how it happens. I am logged into my Azure portal over here. So search policy, click over policy, and there are three things of policy. First one is definition, next one is assignments, and third one is exemptions. So by the name says, definitions means you are allowed to create the policy. So if I click on definitions, you will find the list of available policies already created by Azure. So you see these are the list of policies over here. Now on policy type, you see something called custom and built-in. Built-in means it is Azure predefined policy. Custom means when you create a custom policy over there. Now there are a few things over here. Definition type. So there are two definition type. One is the policy, another is initiative. So the policy, by the name, it is a single policy. Once you try to create a bunch of policy in a group, means basically a group policy which contains multiple policy over here, then it is called initiative. So if you search by this initiative, you will find that these are the initiative which actually, this is the initiative which is NIST SP 800, actually includes 470 policies. So initiatives are nothing but group of policies if you want to define. Okay, but now we will be only considering the policy. At this point we will be creating a policy. Okay, so now just click on the search box. As we want to create a location policy, so let's see that. Type location. Once we type location and click enter, it will find lot of locations policy. Okay, so one of the policy says you can open one by one and check that how the policy is written. Means these are predefined policy by Azure. That's why it is called type built-in. Now we see that allowed location, allowed locations and allowed locations for resource group. Okay, so it is particular that when you create the resource group, that you want to enforce that the resource group should be in a particular location, or in general if you want to enforce the location, then it is this allowed location. So I am clicking on this predefined or the built-in policy by Azure. So once I clicked over it, it shows that this is the Azure policy, how it looks. Now at this point, suppose I want to use this built-in location policy. So I have to do the assignment. You see this menu over here called assign, click it over. So we have to assign with the scope. Under basic tab, you find this is a scope which is mandatory. Now you click over the scope and your management group will be by default selected over here. Okay, and we have to select the subscription. So I'm just adding the subscription, added the subscription. Okay, you can add the resource group as well, or if you want that whatever the resource group and tagged or assigned under the subscription, it should take effect. So you can let only subscription selected. So I'm just selecting over here. So my scope is selected. Okay, the assignment name, you can change it allowed location for my organization, like that. You can add a definition over there as well. Okay, and before clicking on review and create, let me show you a few other options as well. So you have the next tab, which is the advanced, where you can add the resource sector. I'm not going into that details. The parameters, you see that here we will be selecting which locations are we allowing. So at this moment, suppose I want the Canada locations. So my data residency rule says that all my resources and the data should be in my Canada Central or in Canada East, these two regions. So I have selected on that. Okay, now creating this, going to this remediation. Now the remediation is something that when you create a policy, the policy starts affecting for the new resources. But what if you want that your policy should run for your past resources as well? So remediation is a process which actually run the policy for your past resources as well. So as you see that by default, the assignment will take effect on newly created resource. Existing resources can be updated via remediation task after the policy is assigned. So at this moment, we don't have that policy assigned fully. So that's why let's assign the policy first, and then we will run the remediation. Okay. Now the non-compliance message is something you can customize when you are creating a resource. The policy denies, and it will show you the custom message over there. Okay, suppose we call it E2E location restriction failed. Okay, and now the next thing is review and create. So at this moment you just review and create list of allowed locations and click on create over here. Okay, click on create. It will show that the creating policy assignment succeed. Okay, let's go to our policy definition. Click refresh. So our policy name was allowed location. So let's search by allowed location. Allowed location. Check the assignments over here. So you see that allowed location for my org that we created. Click over that to check the assignments. So it is assigned to that particular scope for our subscription, with our subscription, and the allowed locations are Canada Central and Canada East. Okay, so let's go to our policy overview page, and we see that it is showing the allowed locations for my organization, that assignments. Okay, and currently it is showing compliant 1 out of 1. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's see that how this policy will actually take effect. So let me create a virtual machine. So just I'll be creating one virtual machine and trying to create that in a different region other than our Canada East or Canada Central. So here I am just creating a virtual machine, just demo policy. Okay, and selecting any region other than that, suppose US West. Standard, this one, there is no other thing I need to create, and it is reviewing, and it's showing that validation failed, required information is missing or not valid. But let's go back to our basic, and then we are selecting this Canada Central, suppose, and creating review and create, and you see that it is now showing validation failed. Click here to view details. Okay, so you see that the one of the policy failed, and that policy name is E2ESA resource tags required. So our location policy actually passed, but there was another custom policy which I created before, that is resource tag required, has actually denied. So ultimately what happens, if any of your policy fails, it will deny your resource creation. Now I will be talking about that for your resource tag policy creation, and once we fix the resource tag for this virtual machine as well, we will see that how we are able to create our virtual machine. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. Here is the next part when we are talking about the resource tagging. Now by the tagging, we know that tagging is nothing but a label attached to your resource which says few attributes of the resource. So what are the attributes can be? It can be your project name, organization unit, business unit, cost center, app ID, app name, description, which tier it is in, created by, created on, environment, and lot of things. These are the tags which I recommend as a standard list of tags. So whenever you are creating any resource, I recommend that you use this tagging list. Okay, but it definitely depends on you, for your organization, what is the tagging strategy they are using. Okay, now once you have defined your tags, this is the time you create a policy where you will define the tags. So on the right side, as you say that I am creating one Azure policy and want to validate that any resource which is being created must have these tags. So at this point, I have just added 3 tags, just checking 3 tags. It is project, cost center, or environment. Also checking the value we are passing for the project. It must be within this E2ESA demo 1, E2ESA demo 2. For the cost center, you can add your particular values over here just to validate, okay, this is the tag exist as well as this is the associated value. Now let's go to check some actual policies and how we can create that. Here in our E2ESA GitHub repository, we have defined or kept few policies for the reference purpose. As you see, there are 3 policies at this moment created. We are talking about that tags. Okay, so if it is, I'm opening this Azure custom tags allow or deny policy JSON. So it means that it will check first whether the tag exists or not. It will not check the value. Okay, so this policy will check that whether the resources which is being created having all these 3 tags or not. If it doesn't have all these 3 tags, it will simply deny. So let me show you how we can create a policy for that. So it is a custom policy we are creating. Last time for the location, we took the existing built-in policy and added the parameter for the allowed location. Now this is the policy I am creating. Okay, so this is a policy definition. I simply copy from here. Okay, and I go back to the policy, click on definition, left side, click on policy definition, the first option. It is asking for the definition location, so click it over here. It is basically to set the scope over here. I have added the subscription, so whatever the resources are under this subscription will be affected. Okay, I'm just adding a name, suppose E2E tag demo, not adding any description or just by demo. Here it will give you one skeleton of the policy, and as you have by default it is selecting create new. Okay, so here I'm just removing everything and pasting my custom policy over here. Simply I have taken copied from here and I have pasted it here. Okay, and clicking on save, showing that creating policy definition. So we have our E2ESA tag demo policy already created. You see this definition over here. Okay, now if we go to that assignment part, at this moment we don't have any assignments, means this policy is actually not tagged with any entity. So we click this assign button. We have the scope already selected. Okay, we assignment name, we just keep it 01 and click on review plus create. Assignment succeeded. So after doing Ctrl Shift R, a force refresh, I get that this is the policy we created. It is a custom policy. Definition type is policy. And let's go to our overview, because we have created the assignment. So it will show under our overview that this E2ESA tag demo 01, you see that not started, because this policy actually has not been executed over the entity or the scope we have created. Okay, so let's do this thing. Let's go back to the VM creation. Okay, so I'm just clicking on the virtual machine. What I'm doing that just creating one virtual machine in Canada East. So the location policy will be passed, because we are not testing the location policy at this moment. We are only testing the tag requirement. Okay, so I'm just selecting the resource group. Canada Central is the region we have selected. Demo test tag. Okay, and I am not changing anything, review and create, and it has started review. So it is checking with the policies we have defined so far. So again it failed because it says that required information is missing or not valid. Now one more thing to understand, that what is the required information is missing or not valid. So that's the gap I see over here. It is not showing here. It should show that what is that required information missing. So if you go back and come over here, you don't see anything that is red or showing that what should be done. We already know that the tag policy is actually failing, but it should also say that which policy and where it is failing. So I just gave a next try and it showed this time. Okay, maybe for the slowness it didn't show before. Just when I just click review plus create once more, it started showing that. So it is little bit a glitch in Azure portal, cannot help on that. Okay, and it is showing that validation failed. Click here to view the details. Okay, I click over here and it's showing that there are two policy failed. One policy had, as I showed before, that I had the tagged required policy which was already created, and this is the next policy regarding the tag we created, which is A2ESA tag demo 01. Okay, I'm just going back to this virtual machine, this URL over here. So if we come to this place and add the tags, suppose project, this value is demo, cost center, demo cost center, and what was next, env, suppose it is dev. Okay, and let's say review plus create. Now it is passing the policy. So I have all three tags already defined and it is saying that validation passed, and now if I click, it will create the resource. But at this point I am not creating the resource. I just had to check how the policy is taking effect and validation is working. Okay, so let me take you to the different other policies, which are two more policies. We have it here, that if you have the requirement that, okay, you found that the tag doesn't exist, but you enforce to create the tag. So here you find that this policy rule checks the tag exists or not, these three tags. If it finds that no, this tag doesn't exist, then what it does, it takes the effect append. This time it is not denying, it takes the effect append. And what it is doing, append means it will actually create the tag for you. So it will create the tag project with the value E2ESA demo. It will create the next tag cost center with this value, and it will also create the third tag, which is environment, with the dev value. Okay, this is how, if you find that your tag is missing, you can go and append or create the tag. Now the third one, which is listed over here, suppose you want to validate the tag value as well. You want to check whether this tag exists, or the tag which is containing the value must be the defined, one of the defined values. So if it is the project, your value must be E2ESA demo 1 or E2ESA demo 2. If it is the cost center, out of this two cost center values, it should be there. And if it is the env environment tag, it should be dev, stage or prod, like this. So as you have seen that how to create the policy definition for custom policy, you just copy it from here. Just copy the code from this Git repository. Go to your policy. I'm just canceling it over here, so I do not need to create this virtual machine over here. Again, go to this policy. Go to definition and create the policy definition. And once you set the scope over here, I know that I am just repeating this step once more, because it is very normal that you will be creating your policies. Okay, so here in the policy field, you just paste your policy over here and click on save. it will create the policy, and again you do the assignments. Now let me go back to the policy. I'm clicking on overview. So you see that these are the list of policy showing, and it's showing that whether it is compliant or not. So out of 4, you see that 3 are compliant but 1 is not. This is the default policy, has lot of things which are non-compliant. If you want to delete any assignment, suppose you have your policy created, you created the assignments. Now what you want, that you want your assignments to be deleted. But before deleting these assignments, let me take you and show you one thing, how you can create the exemption. So you clicked over an assignment. If you want to delete that assignment, you can delete from here, as it simply show over here. But suppose you want to create the exemption. Exemption means it will not consider that particular identity or that particular entity or a set of resources under that entity. So it is creating an exemption, and the exemption is exemption scope. You can see that you are saying that the resource group is over there. You select the resource group over there. So it is saying, and the resource. So there is no resource currently. So at this moment you have the resource group. So it means that whatever the resources comes under this resource group RG demo 01, the policy will not execute or consider those resources. So this is called exemption. That's why at this moment I am not clicking on the review and the create. But once you create this exemption, it means that your policy will actually not execute or actually not consider this particular scope or your resource group demo 01. I'm going back to policy overview once again and showing you the remediation. So as you see that we have the list of policies created over here. If you click on these 3 dots, you get that view definition, assign, duplicate definition, delete definition, export definitions over there like this. I'm going to this, the one we have created, tag demo. Now on the assignments, you can see that if you want to detach that assignment from the policy, so you can delete that assignment, duplicate or edit that assignment. Okay. And you can also view the compliance as well. If you see the view compliance, that how when the policy executed, how is the compliance. So it says that 1 compliant, 0 exempt, 0 non-compliant over there. And you see this, it is showing that create remediation task disabled. This actually executed for the particular resources. So far I have showed you how can you create the location policy as well as the resource tagging policy. The third one, enforcing strong password, I give you this assignment. So if you created one new user with just by username and password, and you have not enabled your multi-factor authentication, on the policy overview page, it should show the policy, the one which you will be creating, it should show that non-compliant. And once you enable the multi-factor authentication, it should show that the policy is compliant. Thank you for your time. I hope you understood that how can you create or define the policy, manage the policy, create the assignment, create the remediation, create the exemption as well for a particular policy. If you have any query, please feel free to comment on this video. I'll be happy to help you. Thank you. See you in our next session.